So, Home Assistant. This is where I make the move and take the plunge to move away from my horrible SmartThings implementation. And I'm going to show you a little bit about why I'm doing that today and how to do it step by step. I've created a lot of documentation here that I'm going to follow step by step. I intend to make this public for everybody else to follow. I'll start with a few reasons why I'm moving away from SmartThings. So they've got rid of the Groovy IDE, and I had a few integrations that the community had written that have been forcibly removed since the removal of the Groovy SmartThings IDE, such as Echo Speaks, a direct control of all my heating system, Honeywell Evo Home stuff, for a few other bits as well. There's been lots of changes in the app. While it is more user-friendly, it's not as customizable as I'd like it, and certainly not as customizable as Smart Home Assistant and the dashboard display. So I can't create dashboards for displays in the web page easily. I did have a play with action tiles many years ago. Dashboards can't be displayed either on devices, so I want to have a little smart switch in every room to replace my Hue taps and Hue dimmers. They are quite expensive to purchase, so I intend to make my own. Things such as the Shelby wall display, things like that, are quite expensive, but they all come with a relay switch, which I don't need. I want to be able to control all of the home automation through a little display that's pertinent to the room that you're in. You flick through, you can control the lights, the heating, and anything else that you might see in there. So integrations as well. So I've got quite a mixed ecosystem, which I'll go through with you. And I found integrating everything under one control plane fairly tricky, if not impossible, with SmartThings. The stability of the integrations and the changes in the smart apps decommission certain ways of automation that would cause me to have to redo all the automation elements that I've previously painstakingly added. And this is forced on you. It's not a choice that you have. It's forced on you by Samsung. Automations take time to run, partly because calls for the automation can often go to the cloud and back instead of being edge controlled, as Samsung calls them. They've recently developed some edge drivers, and you can develop your own edge drivers if you're that way inclined for anything that you have. And sometimes the automations don't run for unknown reasons. There are probably other reasons that I'll go through, but poor battery life of Samsung Zigbee devices, often having to replace the batteries every couple of months. And it's an expensive ecosystem to maintain, both in terms of cost and effort, and limited support for lesser known or cheaper devices. For example, when I looked at the little smart plug, I was either going to have to program my own edge drivers for this or rely on the community to show me or guide me in the way to set up this device as a different vendor with similar compatibility to make it work. So I'm starting off by going to the SmartThings site, logging in with my account information, and exporting my devices. So from my guide here, you log in, you press the little three dots at the top here, and advanced users, and then you should see my devices here, and from there you can export the whole lot, which is what I've done. Export and download your devices. When you open this up, it looks fairly chunky. So what I've done is I've gone through this entire list of devices that I've got in here, and I have put them into an exported devices tab here. Two tables, one which is untrimmed and just the pertinent information you're looking for, and the other one with groupings of devices by type. So I've got these Zigbee devices, and I've got these Z-Wave devices and some that are connected directly to SmartThings. The other stuff, such as the Edge Child, these are all my Philips Hue devices, which I've paired the Philips Hue directly into the SmartThings hub. That's how they're controlled. I've also gone through and exported my routines. I did this manually, I don't have very many. So I've got a couple of motion detection entries in here that turns on and off lights. I've got some that turn on the fans and some that turn on and off devices around the home, such as the TV. I don't want the kids watching TV before they go to school, so none of the TVs work before 9 a.m. And then a couple of subjective ones that if we're going to the bathroom, for example, after 10:31 p.m. it only turns on 2 of the lights in the bathroom to a very dim. Again, a few in here, turn TV on and off, 9 till 7. Some contact sensors on the doors so that it turns on lights as you're entering. And then one that turns on my electric blanket if it is below 10 degrees outside. I've also gone through the rooms, what devices I have in each room, and put them here so that when I'm designing my new automations, I can quite easily do that. Now, if I move on to the hardware that I'm going to use for Home Assistant here, I've decided to run it on a virtualized Proxmox server, passing through the USB ports. I've purchased an old Dell refurbished 3040M. It's got 16 gig of RAM. I've also purchased some dongles. This one is the Z-Wave, the Zigbee and Matter dongle from Home Assistant directly, and an AOTech Z-Stick 7 device here that I'm going to plug in to control my Z-Wave and Zigbee stuff. So let's get into it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to start Proxmox installation, so I'm going to download the latest version of Proxmox from their site. Let's get the 8.3 ISO installer. One of my good friends once told me, when I first introduced him to computers about 20 years ago, there's a lot of waiting for green and blue bars to finish doing what they're doing. It's much the same today. If you work in IT, you'll know. Okay, so now that's downloaded, I'm going to go back to my documentation and let's plug in a little USB stick. I'm going to use a trusty old Kingston device instead. So let's go back here. Let's remove this.
One eternity later. 6 months later.
Right, let's try again. So, plug in this USB stick. Going to run SBLK. Let's have a look, see where it is. There we go. So dev SD8. And I'm going to run this command. Making sure that everything's correct in there. And it'll give us a nice little progress bar. Let's wait for some more progress bars to complete. While my cat plays my piano. Okay, so that's copied. So I like to make sure everything's copied. Just run the sync command. There's a gap like this. It means there's data still being written from cache somewhere to a device. So we'll wait for that to finish too. Meanwhile, let's have a look. Looks like Proxmox is on there. Yeah, 8.3. Okay, that sync is finished. Let's switch over and let's boot up this refurbished Dell desktop. So let's see what's on this machine. Power it on. It is powering on. Looks like an out-of-box experience. Let's reboot this and have a look in the BIOS just to make sure everything is how we want it. So let's restart this and mash some F keys to see if we can get in the BIOS. Just hitting F2 now. There we go. So we're in the BIOS. Let's have a look. We've got system information here. Boot sequence. Let's enable USB storage device because we're going to need to boot from that. And let's move the boot order upwards for that. Virtualization support is what we're looking for. Enabled. Let's enable the direct I/O as well. Okay, and we're going to unplug the USB stick from my machine. I'll plug it into here. And we're going to boot off of it. Exit. Let's see if it automatically boots off the USB stick. It's flashing, so it's looking like it's going to. There we go. And here we go. So let's do a graphical install. Proxmox. And we always read the EULA. And agree. And we're going to use this whole hard drive. It's only 223 gig. I'm going to press next. Country. We're in the United Kingdom. Set my password. Go next. And give this a name. I'm going to call this device Proxmox 2. 192.168.101.241 /23. Gateway's 100.1. And my DNS server is 100.250. And at this point, I think I'm going to plug the network cable into it. Okay, I have link lights. Should correct that while I've seen it. Next. Check everything there, looks fine. Install. Now we might wait for more blue bars to finish. Okay, and we're done. So this is where it'll reboot itself, and I can get rid of this keyboard off of my desk, and we're going to web directly into it from my machine. Let's just wait for it to fully boot. Post. Let's remove the USB stick now and give it a reboot. There we go, Proxmox. Okay, right, let's move this, turn this off, get this out of the way. Let's switch back to my machine. Let's see if I can get to that URL, which was 92.168.101.241.8006. Yes, we know we haven't secured it. And we're going to log in with root and the password that I set during the installation. Now we can access this directly through the web console, and they've even given us a nice console that we can access on this node from here. So I'm going to carry on through here. I'm going to run some couple of post install scripts, first of which is here. Make sure you understand what these install scripts do. So this is going to do a few nice things for us, hopefully, if it works. I'm going to start the Proxmox PVE post install script. Yes. Correct the sources. Yes. Disable the enterprise repository. Well, we're not a subscriber, so yes, please. Enable no subscription repo. Yes, please. I'm not going to use Ceph, but whatever. I'm going to add the PV test disabled, and I'm going to disable that subscription nag. Okay. I'm not going to use high availability with this node just yet. I can re-enable it later. So that's going to run through a couple of scripts there. Update. Let's do the update now as well. This time we're waiting for text to finish rather than green bars. Okay, let's reboot it. And we should be able to see when it comes back through here. I'll do a constant ping, wait for it to come back. Here you go. Let's see if we can still browse around. We can. Let's open a new shell. Next, we move on to the next section, which is start the installation of Home Assistant. I've put at the top here, there's lots of different ways to install Home Assistant. You can use it on an LXC, you can have it on Docker, you can put it directly on the hardware. But I want to have the ability to back it up easily at a virtual machine level. And I want to integrate this with my other Proxmox server to build a cluster with it and run some of the virtual machines on here. What I've got hardware-wise is probably overkill for what Home Assistant needs. It's not going to need 16 gig of RAM, certainly. And I have the ability to attach this to external storage. I will attach it to my NFS share here, and eventually, when I get around to it, replacing that crusty old 12-year-old NAS up there, I'll stick it on to some alternative storage. So let's get going. What I'm going to do here is go to the Home Assistant site. Let's put that over there. and I'm going to right-click the location of the KVM Proxmox virtual disk image file here, copy the link location. So let's do that. Copy the link location, and then all we need to do is in the shell of your Proxmox server, let's open that up again, is do a wget and paste. That's going to go to that website and grab that disk image down for us. This saves us having to copy it up and SCP it up from my machine to this device. I'm just going directly to the destination of where it needs to go. Okay, let's go to the next step. Let's unpack it. It'll be zipped up. Let's unpack the zip file. Let's have a look, see if it's there first, which it is. Okay, that's done. And we're going to create the VM container. So I'm going to put this over here so I can look at it without having to switch back between screens. Let's create the container. So we're going to go into our node here, press create VM. It's on this node. I'm going to call it Home Assistant. We're going to click Advanced, and we want this to start whenever this physical piece of hardware is booted. So let's click that. Next. We're not going to use any media because we're going to attach the virtual hard drive we just downloaded to it. We're going to go next to System, and we're going to change the machine type to Q35, and we're going to add a UEFI BIOS. I'm going to put the storage on a local LVM, which is just a local disk on this machine for the moment, and we're going to deselect pre and roll keys. Next section, we're going to give, it doesn't matter too much about giving this a disk because we're going to delete it in a second, and I'll show you that shortly. So we're just next through that. I'm going to give, let's disable the advanced stuff here. I'm going to give this 4 cores, maybe a little overkill. And I'm going to give this 8 gig of memory. So 8192. With this device only having one network card, we're going to leave all of this as standard. It's not on a specific VLAN for my lab environment. And we're going to click Next. We're not going to start this yet. We're going to finish. So we should now see our device virtual machine container being created as it's rolling through here. There it is, Home Assistant. Let's attach the disk. You see this has a number of 100 next to it, so this next section is important. We're going to go to the console of the Proxmox server here. We're going to make sure the disk is there, which it is, the QCOW2. I'm going to do QM import disk. And we're going to give the number of this VM, which is 100, and we're going to give it the disk file. So I just pressed H and tab there, auto completes it, and then we're going to put it onto local LVM where the UEFI disk is. I've got that right. It should copy. There we go. Start to copy that across. And then we should get a success message towards the end. So that's imported that disk that we've downloaded to that virtual machine. Let's check that. So we're going to click this, we're going to click Hardware, and there's an unused disk here. Let's tick Edit, and we're going to enable discard packet because this is a solid state disk in here. and press OK and add. This is actually adding disk. Now this is the one that we created previously, as it doesn't have discard turned on. So we're going to detach that one. We're also going to go in here to this one and extend it. So resize, I'm going to give it 100 gig. So quick maths, I want to add 68 gig to that disk. There's the resize running. Okay, that's 100 gig. Let's go to the console and start this machine up. Hopefully it will boot as it should. It doesn't because I forgot a step, so I'm going to turn this back off again. Let's stop this. Yes. And let's go into the options for this virtual machine. So we've confirmed that this is stopped. If we go options, and we need to edit the boot order, turn off everything but that hard drive that we've just attached. Press OK. And let's go back to the console and power it back on. There we go. Okay. We can see that it's collected an IP address there from my DHCP. I don't want this to be on DHCP, so I'm going to find which IP address I want to have for Home Assistant, which is 101.209. I'm going to log into my network and reserve this a static IP address. So let's do that. To my Unify network. I'm going to find that client, which at the moment is on 100.53. Let's make sure I can reach it from my network. I can't. I've clearly done something wrong here, as I can't access that. 100.55. This is where my eyes need adjusting. So let's go back to my network and do 100.55. Let's search for that. There we go. So I'm now going to give this a static IP. I'm going to call this Home Assistant. And I'm going to give it 101.209. I'm going to apply that. Now let's go and reboot this again. When it comes back up again, it should have picked up that IP address from the reservation I just gave it. There we go, 192.168.101.209, port 8123. Okay, and then we wait for more blue bars to finish. And we can go and have a look at the Home Assistant Observer to see the status of it. Same IP address, just port 4357. So let's have a look at that. Healthy, supported, connected. That's good. So that's how you install Home Assistant. Now I'll have more videos coming out a little bit later on initial configuration, how to set up your automations, how to add the things like this, your door sensors, and magnets with them so that they can do open and close sensors, how to add Z-Wave Zigbee devices like these, the Z-Stick 7, as I previously mentioned, and the Home Assistant Connect, ZB1. But for now, that's all.